Chapter 45. On the other side of the river, my brothers and I climbed up into the back of the truck and sat among the bundled family possessions while our parents rode in the cab with the driver. It was only a few minutes' drive to the university campus. I was astonished by the traffic on the wide streets and the clamorous confusion of sounds, the rumble of passing trucks and cars, along with the constant ringing of thousands of bicycle bells. Cyclists streamed around us when we slowed, like a river rushing around a rock. And moments later, we roared past them on stretches of the street. Crowds swirled along the sidewalks and scooted back and forth in the street behind us. Amber lamps illuminated the night, and pinpricks of light glowed in the windows of the squat apartment buildings along the streets. There was noise and activities, but nothing ominous, nothing at all like the mass night marches of the Red Guards that I remembered from Hefei. Here, no one appeared to pay any attention to us as we passed. People went about their business, seemingly fearlessly, not organized, not marching, not chanting or carrying signs. Children clung to their parents or ran beside them. I'd forgotten how luminous and harmless and alive the night might be. I was thrilled by the promise of our new life. Our driver found his way to the campus and pulled up beside a dozen other trucks at the motor pool. He jumped out, stretched, rubbed his eyes, and told us, "It's been a long day. I'll see you in the morning." "Where are we supposed to sleep tonight?" Mama asked. I'd recommend somewhere close to the truck," he said over his shoulder as he walked away. "If you don't, your stuff won't be here in the morning." Papa looked at Mama, shrugged, and asked, "What now?" "First," she said, "these children are hungry. We need to get something to eat." It was decided that Papa would stay with the truck and Mama would take us to find a street vendor. My brothers and I walked along the sidewalk with Mama. We passed through the university gate and followed the noise and the lights to a nearby bustling street. I was barefoot. It felt strange to be walking on the smooth concrete and tar rather than on dirt paths. I noticed that everyone else on the street, even the children, wore shoes. Pedestrians stared as we passed, some even stepping aside as if they feared we carried some contagion. A girl about my age stood at a bus stop with her mother and gawked at me. When we were beside them, she looked up at her mother and said, "Look at the country bumpkins, Mama." Her mother glanced over at me, looked at my bare feet, and frowned. We soon found a street vendor selling steamed buns. I stood close to his stand and breathed in the yeasty scent as Mama bought several. She gave us each one and saved the others for later. We returned to our truck. When we were finished eating, we unrolled some of our blankets, and Mama had us squeezed together in the cab to sleep. She and Papa made a bed for themselves on the ground next to the truck. We awakened at daylight to the buzz of traffic beyond the nearby university gate. Mama stayed with the truck, and Papa took my brothers and me in search of a student dormitory with a latrine and running water. We found one nearby. After we returned to the truck to safeguard our goods, Mama took her turn. Shortly after 8, I accompanied Papa to the university housing office. He identified himself to an official-looking little man behind the reception desk, showed his transfer papers, and requested living quarters. The man examined the papers a moment and looked at Papa and me with undisguised displeasure. He asked Papa a couple of questions and then took the documents to a woman at a desk in the back of the office. In a low voice, he told the woman what Papa wanted and went over the papers line by line with her. Even though they were on the other side of the room and spoke softly, I could decipher some of their words. "Rightist," I heard the man say. "American spy," the woman added. I looked up at Papa, and he smiled down at me as if he'd heard nothing unusual. The woman called someone on the telephone and described Papa's papers. After about 10 minutes, the man returned to the reception desk, unsmiling and unfriendly, and dropped Papa's papers on the counter without saying a word. He returned to his desk. The woman wrote down an address on a small piece of paper and brought it to us. Papa read it and thanked her. Even as he spoke, she turned up her nose and went back to her desk. Nonetheless, I was excited by the prospect of moving into our own quarters on campus. Papa and I wandered around looking for the address written on the paper. He was confused by street names and numbers, but I was so enthusiastic and giddy that I sidled up to strangers on the sidewalk and asked them for assistance in locating our new home. Most of them seemed puzzled. They wanted to help, but knew of no such address. When we finally arrived at the designated address, we discovered a temporary shed that had been put up for construction workers on the campus. The walls were reed mats supported by long pieces of bamboo. The low roof was a pile of straw. The whole flimsy edifice rested against a section of the university wall. The door consisted of a dozen lengths of bamboo lashed together with a straw rope. We stared at it in shock. "I think they wrote down the wrong address," Papa muttered. Yet, tacked to the door was a sign someone had scribbled on a large sheet of paper. "Foreign Languages Department, Wu Ning Kun." "There's no mistake, Papa," I said angrily. "But we're not going to live here. This is even worse than Call Village." I snatched the note from the door, tore it up, and threw the pieces into the air. Papa tried to stop me because it was an official notice and he was afraid I might be causing trouble. But it was too late. The pieces of paper blew away. I was near tears and could not speak. Papa saw frustration and determination in my eyes and said, "Okay, Mama, you are right. We can't live here." On the way back to the housing office, he said to me, "That couple is not going to change our assignment. I have to find someone higher up." We went to the administration building and located the office of the university provost. A man about Papa's age sat behind the desk going through papers. When he saw us, he stood. Papa introduced himself and produced his papers. Without even looking at the papers, the provost smiled and extended his hands. "I'm afraid there has been a mistake," Papa said. "Someone assigned my family to a reed lean-to. I have 3 children. We can't live there." The provost looked at the slip of paper, balled it up, and threw it in his wastebasket. His lips tightened, and he slapped the top of his desk in exasperation. "You are absolutely right," he said. "A mistake was made. I am sorry. This is ridiculous. I only wonder if the man who assigned you to this place could live there." "It was a woman," Papa said. The provost flashed a knowing smile. "I see," he said. He sat down and made several phone calls. His voice was stern and critical as he issued orders and requests. When he was finished, he smiled at us and said, "I've found you a place that's livable, Teacher Wu. Welcome to our university." We hurried back to the truck. The driver had arrived, and Papa gave him our new address. As we pulled up to the address, Mama muttered, "Can this be possible? This is a church." It was indeed a church that had been converted into residential living quarters. We had never seen anything like it. My brothers and I climbed down from the truck and walked around the building, staring in disbelief. It was about 8 by 20 feet. It had a steep cathedral ceiling. At the front and back were 8 tall and narrow stained glass windows. Along one side of the structure, the lower portion of windows had been knocked out and replaced by 8 doors. Each door led to the living quarters for a family. We were assigned number 2. Papa pushed open the door and we followed him inside. Rough brick walls about 4 feet high had been constructed between each of the living units inside. Reed mats were strung up over the walls and suspended from the broad ceiling beams, 15 feet overhead, to give privacy to each unit. "This is unbelievable," Mama murmured as she walked the length of the single room. Her voice echoed throughout the building. God must be watching over us. As he stared at the high ceiling and the reed mats, Papa answered, and he can hear every sound we make. The light spearing through the mosaics at the peaks of the stained glass windows was breathtaking. Splashes of blue and red and green covered part of our wall. I held my arm in the ray of light, and my filthy white shirt turned a deep emerald. I touched it and said, I like it here. I like it a lot. Let's bring in our things, Mama said. We're home. End of chapter 45.